So, postmodernism, what is it?
Hmm. Hmm. Well, as the name suggests, it's after modernism or wants to be after modernism. So I think the best question is to say, what's modernism? And why do the postmoderns think we have to reject it or see it as failed and moving beyond it? So essentially, the modern world is the world that has been created in the last 500 years.
Hmm.
So this is obviously a broad strokes history. So Christopher Columbus crosses the ocean. There's a Protestant Reformation. Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci are the great innovative artists. You see the breakdown of feudalism, the breakdown of the established churches, and more discussion of separation of church and state, discussion of perhaps we should do something about slavery because it's wrong. Maybe we should treat women as equal citizens and not treat everybody as subjects. So the Industrial Revolution, market, capitalistic economics, and so on. So that whole shebang has
Hmm.
obviously been a very revolutionary 500 years, and that's the modern world. So what the postmoderns want to do is argue either that the intellectual framework of modernism, this idea that we should be individuals with individual rights, that we have reason, that we can use science to figure out the world and then to do engineering and to make the world a better place, that we've made progress, all of those things, that we can, as postmoderns, say that intellectually
Hmm.
all of that has been a failure, or that that philosophy is wrong or ungrounded. Or we can argue that practically trying to remake the world through the Industrial Revolution and capitalism has made things worse,
Right.
worse and worse. And that capitalism, for example, maybe has made a lot of the worse, the poor worse off, or that we are exploiting women, right? Or we have ruined the planet. And so the modern world is not only an intellectual failure, but also a practical failure. So we need to reject it all and go do something else, something beyond modernism.
Right. So, a way that this applies to our modern society is this notion that gender is fluid, right?
Mm.
And I think this relates to postmodernism thinking because gender is being seen as a social construct as opposed to a biological fact.
Yes and no. So, yeah, there certainly is a connection. So, if you think in very broad strokes, the moderns would say, there's a natural world. It's matter and energy, and it's cause and effect, and
Hmm.
facts are fact. And one of those sets of facts is a biological set of facts about males and females and sexuality and how reproduction works and so on.
Hmm.
And that when we are thinking about human psychology, of course, psychology is important, but we don't just get to make up whatever truths we want or whatever facts we want, including facts about our biology. We have to be rational and scientific and recognize facts for being facts.
Right.
So the postmoderns, though, will be skeptical and they will say, well, we don't really know what nature is. We can't scientifically prove anything. Instead, we just tell stories. And there's a lot of subjective stories, and different individuals and different groups can tell whatever stories they want about themselves and their identities. And no one can say that anything is better than, or worse or right or wrong. So if you then apply that to issues of sexuality,
Hmm.
then the postmodern claim applied there would be to say, well, there are no facts underlying, or there's no scientific proof
Right.
about anything sexual. It is just a construct. It might be an individual construct or a social construct. So then everything becomes whatever society allows us to say,
Mhm.
and it becomes then a struggle for who controls the narrative, not who has best identified the scientific facts.
Right. So what you're alluding to is that this whole idea or this whole thinking is brought by. I want to take it back to the idea of being a social construct. How big is society? Because it is a problem nowadays that a lot of people are being,
Yes.
or a lot of voices are being canceled out because they don't accept these ideologies.
Yes.
And that's an issue because you cannot really outline the facts. And it's as
Yes.
simple as whether a man is a man and a female is a female.
Yes.
So now it's very fluid.
Yes.
But where does that stop with this thinking?
Right. Well, that's a great question, and it's a hard and deep question. So if we say, for example, that everything is socially constructive, or it's just a bunch of group narratives, then as you're asking, how do we decide who is society, who
Mhm.
that is doing this constructing, or what is the group that is coming up with this story and the narrative and so on? Now, here, postmoderns, if they are very consistent, will have to say, well, we can't give factual statements about what the groups are and scientific delineations of who's in the group and who is not in the group, because then they have to say society itself is a fluid, and now we start to speak metaphorically,
Mhm.
got a fluid shifting, and then who's in the group and who is not in the group is also a matter of social construct. So the more consistent postmoderns will say, well, there's not a right factual answer about this, and societies are not constant. So it just comes down to being a matter of power. Whoever has power socially is able to define what counts as a group or what counts as a society and who is in and who is not. And it's not that I am wrong or that I am right. Instead, it becomes a matter of who's in a position to assert their narrative for a significant number of other individuals. And of course, those individuals who don't accept that narrative,
Yeah.
right, or who want to have a different definition, the claim then is that they then have to become more powerful so that they can then change the narrative or change the language that's used and force it on other people. Now,
Right.
that's what we might call hardcore postmodernism that
Mhm.
will go down that group. And they'll just say it's just an ongoing power struggle over language,
Mhm.
language being one of the tools that we use in informing groups and maintaining groups. And it's just going to shift. You know, some groups are going to dissolve, some groups will grow, some groups will overtake various other groups, and some groups will mix and match with various other groups. And that's just the way it is. There's no right or wrong. Now, less
Mhm.
extreme postmoderns sometimes argue that there is some a kind of an intermediate position where we will say that there seem to be stable groups
Mhm.
across times. Maybe they have organized themselves into religious groups or ethnic groups or racial groups
Mhm.
or gender groups. And so what we will then do is to say that those groups have a historical, something close to fixity,
Mhm.
such that they have captured so many people's minds and they have rooted themselves in social institutions so deeply that we might as well take them as given facts. So in my generation, I'm not, like the modernists say, I might be born into a group. And instead of
Mhm.
thinking of myself as an individual who has his own mind and can decide my own identity and explore and so forth. What I really ought to just do is to see what are the most rooted groups that I happen to
Mhm.
be a part of. I might be in the male group, I might be in the Caucasian group, I might be in the Protestant group, I might be in the Canadian group, and so on. So
Right.
all of these things are pretty fixed, and I should just adopt that group identity or see myself as an overlapping set of those group identities, and that then becomes my narrative. And the more I tell myself that narrative, that more constructs my identity. But they will still not say that any of those groups are set in stone
Right.
or fixed by natural law. They will just simply have a more traditionalist understanding of how societies work. And in many cases, this then merges in with a lot of traditional conservative thought. Not to put too many labels out at the same time, but some of the more radical postmoderns, they like the fluidity because they want to change everything and they want the social constructs to be dissolved so they can have new social constructs. Where some of them are more fine with forming alliances with conservatives and saying that I am just a part of this socially constructed group. And I don't say that
Right.
it's based in natural fact. It just happens to be the identity that I'm comfortable with.